Welcome to the Guitar Temple. Glad you're here. You are most welcome to today's talk. Did you like and subscribe? Like and subscribe for me, would you? Did you tell a friend? Tell a friend! They're your friends! Tell a friend, would you? And don't forget to share. Now that you're here, share it. Okay? I do appreciate it very much. And of course, you can donate below if you feel led to do so. Buy me a pizza if you want. All right. Buy me a pizza. It's okay. Listen, I was just thinking. I was thinking about when I was a young guitarist. I was sitting there reading Guitar Player magazine. I was listening to this album. And when I heard this album, I says, whoa. The guitar game is just up the ante. This is one world-class player, man. It happened to be Larry Carlton. Great studio musician. Late 70s, early 80s. You know, and before that, it was Glenn Campbell, right? He was the top session musician back in those days in the 60s and early 70s. But at this point, it was Larry Carlton. And I remember thinking to myself, going to have to up the ante a little bit. So after perusing the Guitar Player magazine that I was reading, I saw a little article about this big. It said, the Guitar Institute of Technology. I thought, you know what, that might be a good idea. So I loaded up the truck and I moved to Hollywood, California, that is, movie stars and the whole works, right? Anyways, so I says hello to my friend there. But so I went to California, and I remember being in one of the classes in which there was a girl there, and she was the only girl at GIT. Okay, the only girl at GIT. And I remember the teacher telling me, say, hey, could you walk her to her car, because this is Hollywood and it's not as safe as a lot of places on this earth. And I said, sure, I'll walk her to the car. And she was pretty good looking. So I started to take her to the car, but on the way downstairs, she happened to see some friends that she knew, and she went off with them, and I went about my way. But after watching years and years and years later, a big concert, Michael Jackson, and I saw the guitar player he had, and I said, whoa, this chick really knows how to play guitar. She's a master. And I saw her in an interview. And while she was talking in an interview, she said that she went to GIT. And I says, oh, that perked my interest. And she says, I was the only girl there at the time. I says, whoa, the only girl there at the time? Well, when I was there, she was the only girl. That was it. So, because I didn't even know her name at the time. So I was watching it, and I knew it was the same time period because she was talking about some of her training in which, and this was new in those days, they didn't do this before, but we take an alarm clock, a timer, an oven timer, if you will, and you set the timer for 15 minutes. 15 minutes on arpeggios, 15 minutes on chord changes, 15 minutes, and you use your timer. And she was talking about the timer and stuff like that. I thought to myself, this is going to be pretty much the same class I took, because after I left there, that's what I was doing. I was using a timer, 15 minutes, like I told you, on arpeggios or whatever it might be, scale runs, like that. So it was kind of a new thing, and I thought to myself, that was her. Anyways, I thought it was interesting. But she didn't only play for Michael Jackson. She also played for the great Jeff Beck. Jeff Beck. I was finding it interesting. Jeff Beck, just in talking here, Jeff Beck was asked to join the Rolling Stones by Mick Jagger years and years ago. That's right. And not only that, Pink Floyd wanted Jeff Beck as their guitar player originally, But they were too afraid to ask him, thinking he's just going to turn us down. Can you believe it? Anyways, I like David Gilmour very much. But I also like Jeff Beck very much. So back to Jennifer Batten. That's the girl that was in that class. It was I remember it because I saw her in an interview with Pat Hicks. Now, I knew the man personal, because in those days I was going from Maine up to Hollywood, California, right? Well, I wanted to get some security in my money, because in case you get robbed, right? Because it wasn't a safe place, Hollywood back in at that time period, I guess. So I got American Express travel checks. Didn't work. When I got up there, I had all my money in American Express travel checks. They didn't accept it. So anyways, I talked to Pat Hicks, who is GIT. Without him, there wouldn't be a GIT. He was the top dog. I mean, he's the financial officer and stuff like this. So he had exchanged the cash I gave him. I think it was $3,000 at the time. And he gave me, I gave him the checks, and he gave me the money, so that I could, otherwise I couldn't even eat. Every place I went, they turned down the checks. So not a good advertisement for American Express. But anyways, I figured that'd be a good one to take a look at. Let's take a look at Jennifer Batten.
If they stop you, just keep dead. Just hit your highest note. Woo! It's time for you to shine. And hit a high, long one. Woo! It's your time to shine. We'll be right there with you.
Is there a Jennifer Batten that's not the guitar? In other words, if I just kind of
No.
take that, I mean, is there a Jennifer Batten now?
Yeah, the Burger King queen, I guess.
Well, I don't want to make you feel here. I mean,
Thank you.
I had
My pacifier.
no.
GIT graduate Jennifer Batten can tell some good stories about how a few phone calls can change your life.
Hello, you've reached Jennifer, La Casa de Riff. Please leave a message and I'll get right back to you.
Jennifer, this is Steve. Call me right away. I got an audition for you. Jennifer, this is Steve again. Call me as soon as you can. I have a great audition for you. Jennifer, you gotta call me back. All right, I'll tell you. It's the
Michael Jackson tour. Call this number. And so my first thought was, that's such a huge thing, I'll never get it, but I'll call it. It's pretty exciting to even be able to audition for that. And I called up and asked when the last possible time to audition was, so I could stay home and work on his tunes. And I hooked it up. It was about 3 days later, and just canceled everything, canceled all my students, canceled everything, stayed home, bought a CD player so I could hear all the parts real clearly, and went in, auditioned, and it turned out it was just me in front of a video camera. There was no band there, which was kind of relaxed, actually, and I'm glad Michael wasn't there. He was just going to look at the videos later. To tell you the truth, I was so flying, so happy to have the gig. I didn't really think twice about it for about a couple months, and then one day I looked in the mirror and go, wow, I look weird. Because at first I had a severe mohawk that went like straight up. It wasn't shaved on the sides, but pretty much greased to my head. A lot of hair. And then I asked him after a while if I could tame it down a little bit and at least get a little hair out to the side. Every once in a while I hear somebody talking behind my back, or you hear the old adage, the girls can't rock and that kind of stuff. And I'm aware of that stuff, but it hasn't been directly in my face. I haven't had to deal with it too much. Different bands around LA. I mean, the kind of thing where it's all original music and you play maybe once or twice a month if you're lucky. And I wasn't really happy with any of them. And I was just kind of focused on, boy, I would really like to just have one great band that I'm inspired to work with. And within a month of those thoughts, poof, I got a call to audition for Michael Jackson. And I knew there was a ton of people that were auditioning, so you know, I didn't want to get my hopes up because it was a huge thing. I mean, especially 1987, he was at the peak, and the Bad album had just come out, and Thriller was, you know, on the way to 10 billion sales. And Michael was everywhere. I mean, Michael Jackson toothpaste, Michael Jackson lunchboxes, everything. And then I played the Giant Steps tapping solo that ended up on my first record. And then the hardest part was they asked me, he wanted to get kind of a sense of my personality. So talk. I mean, talking to a camera, you know, a one-way conversation with myself was probably the hardest part. You know, I just all of a sudden couldn't think of what to say. I probably went LA on him, and I'm a Sagittarius, and I like fluffy dogs. So A few days later, I heard back. Finally, I came home I was teaching at GIT at the time, and I came home, and on my answering machine was 3 messages from someone at Musicians Institute, because they had a referral program there, and that's how I got connected with that. You got to call me back. There's an audition for you. You know, the next message, aren't you home yet? Please call me back. And eventually I called back, and they said Michael Jackson was auditioning, and yeah, that was to get the audition. But the great call was, yeah, he likes your stuff. Come back and play with the band and see how it goes. And next thing I knew, I had a ticket to Tokyo and playing for 50, 60,000 people.
You probably can't tell, but Michael Jackson's infectious Beat It was his first ever attempt at a rock song. But the King of Pop's Ode to Street Life might have never charted at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 if it wasn't for the memorable work of hard rock guitarist Eddie Van Halen. In 1982, the anti-disco movement was strong, so Jackson and his producer Quincy Jones were looking for something that would give him a harder edge and set his next record apart. Jones tasked him with penning a rock song in the mold of the Knack's mega-hit My Sharona for his upcoming album Thriller. Who might you enlist if you're a legendary pop superstar dipping your toe into the rock genre? For Michael Jackson, it was none other than legendary guitarist Eddie Van Halen. But when Quincy Jones approached Van Halen to record the track, he thought it was a joke. According to Stereogum, Eddie Van Halen reportedly hung up on and cursed at Quincy Jones 4 times before realizing it wasn't a prank call. While Eddie Van Halen usually avoided taking any side gigs while working with his band Van Halen, he agreed to the collaboration, but he had 2 rules. Van Halen wouldn't be credited, and Jackson wouldn't tell the rest of his bandmates. As Thriller and its hit Beat It climbed the charts, Eddie Van Halen was shocked to see it outpace his band's own album 1984. Van Halen later told CNN in 2012, "I said to myself, who is going to know that I played on this kid's record, right? Nobody's going to find out." Wrong. Big time wrong. It ended up being Record of the Year. Then, Eddie Van Halen found himself perusing a Tower record store in Sherman Oaks, Los Angeles when Beat It came on over the stereo. Some nearby customers mused that the song's guitar solo sounded almost exactly like the playing of Van Halen himself. He reportedly tapped the record store kids on the shoulder and fessed up that it was him. Naturally, his bandmates caught wind of Eddie's contribution, even if he went uncredited on the album. He offered his Van Halen bandmates a few excuses for his pop interlude. "I just said, busted. Dave, you were out of the country. Al, you weren't around. I couldn't call anyone and ask for permission." Van Halen's street cred was safe. His bandmates let it pass, but not without first razzing him about one huge mistake. Turns out, Eddie Van Halen had never asked to be paid for what was now the #1 song in the United States. He had agreed in the end to play on the track, perform a guitar solo, and rework the arrangement for the entire track. While Eddie Van Halen's 20-second guitar solo on Beat It seems to transcend all space and time, in fact, it only took the legend half an hour to record.
I was born in a very small town in upstate New York and got very interested in music. My dad was a big music fan and always had jazz playing in the house after work. And I really got caught up in Beatlemania when that happened. I was one of the millions of people sat in front of the black and white TV watching one of the 3 available channels. I was watching Ed Sullivan when the Beatles hit, and it was very exciting, and the whole town was caught up in it. In fact, there was a local kid that came door to door selling Beatles fan club memberships, and I really, really wanted to join, but my mother wouldn't let me. So lo and behold, I stole money from her purse when she wasn't around and went to that kid's house to make sure I got in the Beatles fan club. For some reason, I never got busted when the stuff started coming in the mail. She must have forgotten that she had said no. I was very jealous that my sister had a guitar and I didn't, so I let that be known, and for the next birthday or Christmas, I ended up with an electric guitar, which was very odd back in those days to get an electric for your first guitar. But my dad had me starting lessons right away, so I learned to read and learned the basics of at least the first 3 frets. And then I ended up with various teachers as the family moved. I ended up with a folk teacher that taught me various finger-picking styles with the right hand. Then I ended up with a rock teacher and a blues teacher. So I learned a lot of songs over the years. I got turned on to Musicians Institute, which at that time was only guitar, GIT. Back when it very first started, I ended up in the 3rd class they ever had. They advertised the Guitar Symposium
one weekend in Guitar Player magazine because they were just starting out and trying to get interest. And I saw the ad and got excited and ended up driving from San Diego, where I was living at the time, to LA for the weekend. And I was just really caught up in it and blown away. Most all the teachers, Joe Diorio, Ron Este, Don Mock, were jazzers and so far above my head. It really opened up my eyes as to what was possible on guitar. I moved back to LA for more opportunity in 1984. And I ended up working with a bunch of different bands by the time I got the Michael Jackson gig in 1987. And within 6 months or a year of moving back to LA, I ended up teaching at MI up until the Michael Jackson tour. And in between those tours, there was 3 tours, so in between the tours, I ended up doing some more teaching. I taught a couple different classes, and one was to help kids keep up with the curriculum and test them periodically. But mostly I spent a lot of hours in open counseling, which was just a free-for-all, that anybody that came in, I could show them licks and tunes and answer their questions. There was no set time that people had to be there, so people just came in and out all day. I did 4 hours a day, twice a week. Just about every day, I would leave that place thinking I just told them everything I know about music and there's nothing left. And then I would have to cough up something else 2 days later. I can honestly say that I would not have had the opportunities that I have had if I hadn't gone to that school and gotten that foundation. Just the transcription class alone has given me the skills to basically learn anything I want to. And being able to transcribe well and accurately really helped me with the Michael Jackson gigs and with the Jeff Beck gigs for sure. Without that school, I never would have gotten those gigs. Unless you have the rare, very rare opportunity to end up in a band for a lifetime that is super successful and continues to put out hit after hit after hit and be able to fill rooms, whether it's clubs, theaters, or arenas, you're going to need to really stretch out and be able to do a lot of different things, from teaching and giving clinics to various kinds of seminars to being able to play in a lot of different situations and being able to cover different musical styles. So in that regard, Musicians Institute did its job in cranking me out as a player that can work in a lot of different situations. And I've been able to work as a pro player for many, many years because of that. Mother, that when I was 12, that's what I wanted to do for a living. And being a good mother, she said, "Now, honey, that's a very competitive business." When you're 12 years old, it means nothing. I mean, you've got no idea what the competition is like. And it's just, I want to play music. I love it. That's what I'm going to do, period.
So, did you know Christy Hynde just came to town?
I heard about it.
And she was saying that women can't rock as well as men.
She needs to come talk to me.
All right.
Tell her that. Send her a message.
No, she was saying that women, that like our boobs are too big or something, or that our shoulders are too small, you can't hold the guitar properly. That's what she was saying.
Was she sober?
She was sober and she was angry as hell as usual. I mean, do you know there aren't a lot of women who really are there that we just don't know about?
Well, you don't hear about them until they get signed generally to a record label or get a big tour. I think there's more and more, and by the millennium, I'm hoping that we'll maybe be a 50-50 match.
It really seems to be a boys' club at this point, though, isn't it?
It is, and it's time to change, damn it.
How did you break into the boys' club?
Ignorance, basically. I just started when I was 8 years old, and I didn't know there was any rules. I just, saw guys on TV and heard records and was real interested in it. Besides, my sister had a guitar and I didn't, so I let it be known I was next. I was jealous. See, that thing will just take over.
Yes, I didn't mean that note because I didn't play one. Sounded good, though.
Yeah, I went to school. I went to the Guitar Institute of Technology.
Never heard of such a thing.
GIT. A lot of syllables for a school, but it's in Hollywood, and it's a year-long, real intense course, and that's where I got the major kick in the butt that got me on my way.
Is that a purely rock-based college, or what kinds of guitar would you learn?
What it is, it's a technical school with the idea of other technical schools that you can get a job doing your craft when you get out the other side.
Yeah. So you prefer rhythm things or solo things?
I enjoy both. I enjoy playing the melody.
Yeah.
You know, it's two different worlds. Supporting Michael is a whole other thing. It's about groove. That's like 99% of the show is about groove, and the soloing is just, you know, I just get a couple solo spots. But in my own show, I play a hell of a lot more soloing and melodies. So I like the balance of both.
Jennifer, nous qui interviewons des gens et des hommes depuis des années dans Private Jack, est-ce que c'est dur d'être une femme dans un monde d'hommes dans la musique?
The music industry is difficult for both men and women. There are a lot of women in music. Sheryl Crow, Janet Jackson, tons of women. But generally they're singers and guitar strummers as opposed to soloists. So it's kind of an odd thing I'm doing. And there's good sides and bad sides. The good side is that since there are so few women guitarists,
Jennifer Batten.
they remember me. Yeah. If not,
Can't forget you.
if they haven't heard my music, at least they remember me as the girl with the big hair from Michael Jackson. So hopefully they'll be curious about the record from that. And the negative side is there is prejudice out there. A lot of guys just assume that women can't play or can't rock because it has not been acceptable for women to show their aggressive side. And that's what rock and roll is.
So you're an
And
artist.
today we have the good fortune of one of the great guitar players, and especially one that came out of MI, which makes it extra special, Jennifer Batten here. This is Jennifer.
Greetings.
There's Jennifer. So, Jennifer, maybe I can do this. I go back to, I hear this footsteps coming down the hall in the old 5850 at a funky little old building. I mean, that place was it was a terrible little place, but it was our home for the time being. And here's a little knock on the door, and a little face reaches around the corner and says, "Hello, are you Mr. Hicks?" And, yeah, and there's Jennifer, if I may, Jennifer, because you have a certainly more sophisticated look than you did then. She had a little stringy blonde hair, and little gold rimmed glasses, and I think she had a t-shirt and fatigues and army boots on. She was not about to be anything but a guitar player. That was her goal and her vision and what she was going to do. So she came in and sat down. Should I tell us or should you tell it? Do you remember it?
I'm enjoying your version.
Okay. Whether it's true or not, huh? Okay. So why don't you? Okay, when you came and sat down and you saw this balding guy across the table from you, what were you thinking at that time? Anyhow, what was going through your mind?
Actually, I had come up for you had advertising Guitar Player magazine for a weekend guitar symposium. And I went up just to check it out, not having any idea that I would join the school. And I ended up auditioning when I was there and failing miserably.
Well, I asked you to play a G major 7th chord.
You remember that?
And you played an open G7th cowboy chord and looked up at me like, huh? And I said, well, let's try something else. What's the 2 chord in the key of F? Okay, anyhow, go ahead. Tell how you were feeling at that time.
I had some schooling to do before I could go to your school.
Yeah.
So, I thought I was an okay player. I had played since I was 8 years old, but taken lessons from people that were just teaching me songs. They taught me the tools of the trade.
I remember you, the folks would be going to the beach and partying and having a good time, and you're saying, no thanks, I'm here to work, and you just focused to stick your nose into the music, and that was, you never looked up for the year.
That's true, and I lived in a garage.
Yeah, I remember, and the rain came in, and
it flooded.
It flooded,
that was
and
nasty.
And she had to be in a smelly carpet.
Oh yeah.
And ate top ramen.
Cooked my dinner on a Bunsen burner. Those were the days.
Those were the days. Oh my goodness. Oh.
That's true, man. I had so many Bunsen burners dinners.
That sounded like Howard Roberts.
But the closest thing to it was he was doing these theory tests, like what's the 3 chord in the key of C? What's the 5 chord in the key of F? I mean, really rapid fire. And I was, just when I was getting the answer, he'd be on to another question. And for the first and luckily only time in my life,
I ended up with hives. I looked on both arms. I'm just covered with hives from the stress of it. And I thought, there's no way I'm going to make it through this year. I'm just buried day one.
Oh my God!
And then he went back to Seattle, and things calmed down, and
it took him
carried on.
But at the end of the year, if I remember correctly, you not only won the Outstanding Guitar Player of the Year award.
Most improved is the one I remember.
Was that what it was? Okay, well.
I might have got a couple. I don't remember. It was a long time ago.
And then the other one was I think you played with DiOrio there.
I did.
At graduation. Oh boy.
That was a ballsy move.
Come from that extreme start to ending up playing with the master was quite an accomplishment. Jennifer, towards the end of the year there, then. Or no, actually, it was about you finished school and then you went home and you woodshedded for a couple 3 years.
Yeah.
And then you called one day and said, "You guys need another teacher," and I think I sent you to Tom Bartlett. And I said, "See what Tom needs," because Tom was director of education. And if you want to say what happened, you didn't have to audition or anything, did you, for him?
No, I think right when I called, Scott Henderson had gone on tour, so they did have a hole to fill. So I got in there right away. I was very lucky.
Good timing.
And I was also working as a security guard from midnight to 8.
Oh, there?
Not there, no. No, just to make ends meet to get into LA, get settled.
Okay, so then you started teaching. Now, was it around this time that you began? You started to work on your which you probably, I think, the best in the world with the two-handed tapping technique. Was that done?
No, I started that right after GIT, right after I graduated.
Really?
Because Steve Lynch is the one that turned me on to it, and he got inspired from Emmett Chapman giving a clinic during our year.
So how long were you with Jeff?
3 years.
3 years.
It was very intense. 3 years, and my ears are shot from the volume. It was just crazy, man. I remember my ears would be hurting. I mean, they'd be hot before a sound check. Before because ears take 48 hours to repair, and we didn't have 48 hours. We'd go gig and then gig again. So I'm definitely have lost some frequencies
from that. Huh? So anyhow, Jennifer, you knew how you felt walking down that long hall and into that office with this old guy here, and taking your audition and what you were up against going to the school. With that kind of an experience and background, what would you say now as a experienced professional? What would you say to a young person wanting to come into, let's say, MI or GIT? To study, what advice would you give them?
Come in with open ears and follow your passion and have a goal of changing the world.
Ooh, changing the world. Okay. What about the workload that you were up against? What kept you from that overwhelming you? Because I know how many students that have come through the school that have had to quit or almost quit because it was overbearing amount of work to absorb. So how do you advise them to not give up? How do they deal with the workload that they get?
The first thing that comes to mind is from a Howard Roberts seminar where he was saying, you might look at the whole piece and go, oh my God, I can't play this. But if you take one bar, one small chunk at a time, and accomplish that, then add another bar and another bar, then you can do it.
So what did you do in place of that?
I practiced my ass off 10 hours a day with an egg timer. And then eventually I got in bands and practiced all day and played all night. And I remember the egg timer. We had.
Tell about the egg timer.
Oh yeah, the egg timer was the bomb. I mean, that's the ultimate way to focus what you're doing. The classes were, I think 2.5 minutes to work on this arpeggio, 5 minutes to work on this, and then you had to keep going or you would get behind for the lesson plan after a class. And after the school was over, I would set my egg timer for 1 hour sight reading, 1 hour of ear training, 1 hour of arpeggios, and on until it would be 8 or 10 hours. And then as time went on,
it was 1 hour of jamming, and then I'd reset the egg timer, another hour of jamming, and then another hour of jamming. I mean, we'd end up doing the fun stuff for a while.
That's egg
until it
timer
was
hours
all
there.
jamming.
Okay, which is
And there's the video. Jennifer Batten, a world-class guitar player, don't kid yourself. Phenomenal. Well, that's it for me here. I hope you join me again here at the Guitar Temple. Don't forget to tell a friend and the whole works. By the way, I might be gone for a little bit, so please peruse all of the videos in the time that I shall be gone. If you want to see me, I will be in Amsterdam. And then I will be in Paris. So if you see me in Paris, say hello. Bonjour. But most of the time we'll be in Greece. I'll be in Greece. Hope to see you there. But if not, that's all right. Peruse the site, and I'll see you in about 3 weeks or so. It'll be a while. But take a look at all the videos while I'm gone. And I hope to come back to some higher numbers, more subscribers, please. All right. Thank you very much. And I do appreciate you coming here. And as always, keep playing.